Jonathan, lately I was reading about De Bono's book, which is called Simplicity, and it was quite interesting about De Bono how he embraced minimalist lifestyles, and he also encouraged the users how to embrace the simplicity, take out all the clutterness and how to embrace the simplicity in our lifestyle. So, and I think De Bono is one of your favorite author. And uh, a few weeks ago, you talk about how this simplicity has uh, used in your teaching of architectural technology. Could you please explain me how did you do that? How did you lecture to the students in that sense?
So one of the concepts of simplicity, I mean, it's quite a complex book. Ironically, considering it's all about
Yeah.
simplicity, there's actually a lot in it. Things about simplicity that he said is that we should teach backwards. And it took me
Oh,
ages to figure out what he meant by teaching backwards. But he was saying that we should really teach the alphabet backwards. So instead of teaching A, B, C, D, we should actually teach A, B, A, C, B, A, D, C, B, A. And I think it was a really poor example that he used for that, of that teaching
hmm,
backwards. But what I really think he was trying to get at was that when you teach, you should always try to relate to something that the students have already learned. So, for example, today I was teaching manual drafting, doing a section through a building, showing the floor joists and the bearers and all that kind of stuff, and the piles and the flooring. So yesterday, the students had a lesson with a physical lesson where the tutor actually had real piles and real bearers and real joists, and he had just four piles and enough bearers and joists. And so I was teaching drawing, but I managed to connect the drawing to something that they'd done yesterday. So
yeah,
always, and that's what I think De Bono meant by teaching backwards. You're referring back to something that they already know. Because I often think of teaching new skills as it's old school, but pigeonholes. In the old days, we
hmm,
used to get mail. You go to a mail room. There's all these little slots for your
yes,
mail and the pigeonholes. And I often think of the student's brain as being a bit like the pigeonholes, where there's some information there, and you're trying to cram new information. But if you can put that information close to something that they already have, that information can actually latch on to something, and it can latch on
yeah,
to a piece of existing information. And that's what I think
yeah.
De Bono was getting at, that idea that you can teach connected to things that are already existing.
Oh, yeah. That's I just had a thought like one of the I think one of the Steve Jobs interview, and he was talking about joining the dots, joining the dots to make a creations because how I think one of the interview he was talking about how Macs or how iPhones iPhones has been created is just
That was his
connecting. Oh, not joining. Is what he mentions connecting the dots. For example, like
yeah, so that was his
yeah,
commencement address at Stanford University, and he was
yeah,
saying
yeah,
how
yeah, yeah.
as he learned lots of different
Yes,
things in his life, and it
yes.
wasn't till later that he learned that all those things connected together.
Together. So that's
Um,
what I think it's the same thing like the Bono theories. Like it's what the students has already know, and we connect the dots for them, and which makes much better for the cognitive way of
yeah.
thinking. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I did. I
really
did.
interesting.
I used to do a lot of flying and a lot of traveling, and I used to
Hmm,
always have a book to read on the plane. I'd always be reading, and The
hmm.
Boner was a really good book to read because it really made you think heavy. And this is the days before you could just sit and have a podcast or an audio book read it for you. You actually
Yeah.
had to physically think about what you're reading. And it gave me loads and loads of ideas. And
Hmm.
one of the things he said about simplicity is that it's actually simplicity isn't easy. I mean, if
No,
you
it's
look at
not easy.
Tadeo Ando's architecture, it looks beautifully simple, but there's so
Yeah,
much hard work goes into that simplicity. It's so much easier to make it look complex because you can just stick another thing on it. But to
yeah,
reduce that down is really difficult. And in a way, with our drawings, that's what we really need to get our students to understand is that they need to edit what they're writing down until it
Hmm.
gets to the nub of the issue, so that we don't have a lot of waffling. One of the things that
Yeah.
we've done with our students is to limit the number of words they can write for an answer.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if you've only got one page, you've got 500 words to write the answer to this. Oh, but I need 2,000 words. Well,
Hmm.
you haven't got it. You can, if you can't say it in a logical way in 500 words, you don't understand the
The
principles that we're
concept.
talking about. And that
Yes.
and that that kind of goes back to what Edward de Bono is saying is, removing all the complexity until you get to just the most important issues, and the
Yeah.
simplicity. I mean, one of the things I used to say to my kids was when they did their school homework, they'd say, "Oh, it's good enough," and I'd always say, "Good enough is not good enough." And sometimes we fail our students because we let them do good enough work
Good enough.
when we
Hmm.
should really be encouraging excellence.
Yeah.
Um, and that extra step of excellence is what takes a lot of hard work. And Edward de Bono says that good is the enemy of the best.
Yeah.
When you get a good answer, you go, right, I've got a good answer, I'll stop. And that's the whole problem. It's the enemy of the best answer. And
Yeah.
and I think that limiting what the student can say is forcing them to not just come up with a good answer, but actually filter it and edit it again so that they've got the best answer.
Yeah. So it's also encourage their critical thinking because otherwise, and also they need to being a concise and on dot message is the skills, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Otherwise, yeah. So otherwise, some people they talk, and after that, it's, everybody forget. It's like a short to the point and attack it, and yeah, that's a
I,
good way of doing that.
you imagine
Hmm.
a construction management consult, you teach the CM students, the construction management
Yes, I
students.
do.
Imagine if they wrote a variation that was 2 pages long.
Now nobody reads it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
nuts to think about. So if you're going to write an instruction to the contractor, it's got to be succinct. It's got to be clear.
yeah,
And that is really going to that heart of that simplicity of making sure that what you say is exactly the right thing to say, but you've said it in the shortest possible way so it's clear and unambiguous.
yeah. Yeah, I think there was one instance when I happens in my life. When I send an emails, I thought it's an instruction to the. That's what I thought, and I thought this is an instruction to the subcontractors when I was young, and I put just to that it's just an email, and uh, I think I put it like a, just to let you know or something, and then say next day I went to the site and is he is he doing? No, he said. You said just to let you know. It's said for information only. It's not for construction. So your information is not clear, or something like. It's something like that. As okay. Oh, I think it was just to protect him, for not to make mistake or something like that, and just to let you know, don't do that. And he said, no, it's just you're giving just for information. So I keep on doing it because I doesn't means that I need to follow. Your answer is not clear. So it's
Mm.
the language is also important. Just simplicity, language. Now we're talking about that. Yeah, yeah, that's
So
very good.
I mean,
Mhm.
just to get rid of the simplicity book, that was that learn was to
Yeah,
teach connected to existing
yeah,
information as much as you can,
yes,
and make sure
yes.
that when you're teaching one subject, that it actually
Hmm.
connects them to the other subjects that the students are learning, so that they
Yeah,
see that architecture is a holistic principle.
yes,
The other
yes,
the other book that I really like from Edward de Bono is The Six Thinking Hats, which is
yeah.
a great way of group work if you can
Hmm.
get the
Hmm.
groups to think of the six hats. I've forgotten what they are. There's like red, blue, green.
White, red, black, yellow, green, blue. Yes, yes.
Blue sky
Yeah, I
thinking is
was.
blue. Black is
Yeah,
factual. What are the facts
yeah.
here? Red is emotional. How do we
Emotional.
feel emotionally about this issue? And the whole
Yeah,
principle of the six thinking hats is for the group to go through the six hats and look at this problem from the same point of view in each case. And I did a
Yeah.
sketch. I wrote a review of the book, and I put a sketch. I don't know if I sent it to you.
It is, it
Two
is
people
quite
looking at a building
interesting. Yeah. hmm It is quite
from.
interesting. You start talking about how to teach architectural technologies by using six thinking hats. I never thought about that because six thinking hats has been used a lot in a lot and discussed so much so in the business world. They appoint they have a business meeting and they approach the problems and how to solve the, the business and the opportunities, how they think about that. That was I've been reading about it and how the practical application about that. So now you're talking about Edward de Bono's that this Six Thinking Hats book, and that concept brings into the architectural technology class. And how did you do that? How did you assign the students, and how did you make the students to walk each other in that way?
Well, it was a group activity, and I actually didn't
Yeah.
guide them very much, but I just told them
hmm
to use
hmm
that as a strategy. Because
hmm
it turned out that my daughter got taught how to use the six thinking hats at primary school,
Wow,
and
that's quite
um,
young.
it was really young. It was really young to think that they were teaching that stuff. But anyway, I said
I
to my
read it in my primary too. By
so
the way,
so
I
we're
read
doing
it in my primary too. as
yeah.
well.
So we were doing group work, and there was, there's the students are always looking at the problem from a different point of view. And so I
hmm
said to them, what you need to do is you need to think of the six thinking hats. And some of them went,
hmm
oh yeah, we studied that at primary school or intermediate or something, but
Wow.
I didn't think it was any use.
hmm
And so I tried to encourage them to look at, because this group activity is about developing a master plan and sustainable ideas.
hmm
And the
hmm
challenge
hmm
is that everybody's looking at the problem from a different point of view. And if you can get them to think of the problem from the same point of view, then there's not so much in the way of argument, but there's a lot more discussion involved. And so that's what I tried to do. It's not always successful because they
Yeah.
don't want to read the book. So you really
hmm
need the opening synopsis, which is actually really simple. I think it's a one-pager description of what each hat does. He's managed to turn it into an entire book where it goes into loads of detail on the white hat and the red hat and so
Yeah.
on. But actually, all you need is the Chat GTP summary of the whole thing, and it'll tell you exactly what the book is all about. I mean, that's
Yeah,
another
that's
topic.
that's
We
really
should
good.
really talk about AI and what that does, but that's a
Yeah.
whole nother topic.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are books that I read while I was, while I was thinking about my business. And remember that I used to write lots of training manuals, and so I was
Yes,
always
you did.
looking for books that would help me teach other people. And
hmm
those two books were really good about um, getting people to think, because the
Yeah.
other thing about the six thinking hats is to help people think laterally. And I think Edward de
hmm
Bono was the guy who coined lateral thinking.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so that was the six thinking hats was one of those, but simplicity really related to the way that I wanted to write my manuals, because I needed them to be
Yeah.
clear and succinct,
Concise.
and I needed to also that connecting. I did a lot
Connecting
of work
dots.
making sure connecting to previous information, but yeah,
Yes.
or connecting the dots. So
Yeah. Yeah.
those were the books that I thought were quite fun. I mean, from an architectural point of view, there's loads of books that we should read. I found a great
Yes.
one called. So the book was called Studio Craft and Technique for Architects. It's a beautiful little book.
Yes.
It's not a hardcover, but it's a stitched book. So it's all stitched together.
hmm
So it's going to last a long time, and it's about the size of a pattern language. I don't know if you've got a pattern language book. Christopher
Uh, I can
Alexander. Do you remember his
I
book?
can see the size of the book from the website. Yes. Yeah.
This one,
Yeah.
the old
Pattern
pattern
language.
language. So it's about that big, but it's not quite as thick as a pattern language. But it covers everything, like how to draw stairs and how to
hmm
sharpen a pencil and how to hold a T-square and how to glue stuff and how to
So all
use
the
tools
all.
and how to draw
hmm
perspective. I mean, just everything that a student needs to pass our
Yeah.
courses is in that book.
Hmm.
and it's a fantastic little book. It cost me $60, I think, in New Zealand. It's $40 wherever that website is that I just found,
And
Australia by
in
the
US
looks of it.
dollar, yeah, US dollar. Oh, that's not
Um,
that expensive now.
so
Hmm.
that's not too dear. I mean, when you compare it to anatomy books, at $125 for each course, the students are
Yeah,
paying, hundreds of dollars for each textbook for each course, and we're saying, here's one book, it'll do the entire course for you.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's really useful. But that is a fantastic book. It's got things like
Hmm.
the rules for stairs and how rises should be and how to draw them, how to detail a stair. It's just got so much in it. It's really cool that directly relates to the course we teach.
By the way, when I was young, I also read, Francis D.K. Ching, which is, I think
Yes.
he's the architect from Chicago, and I found it is very useful for young architects, because I can see all the beautiful architectures, and his sketches on in these books are amazing, I believe.
The book
And
is called Architectural Drafting or Architectural Drawing.
yes,
Um,
and after that he has come, he has so many books on that, and also it is very good example of to shows young architect or young architectural technologists how to draw a proper labeling, proper design, the line weight, etc. It's
mhm.
very, it's a really
Hatching,
good present, yeah, hatching
shading,
and yes, yes.
the whole
And
lot.
also, yeah, same thing. He shows, chapter by chapters how the what is the 2 points perspective, 3 points perspective, 1 point perspective, etc.
Yeah, I've got.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, I used to have one of his books, but it fell to pieces, and I don't know where I put it.
yeah,
Um,
but I have it in library. I think there are 3 books in our library. So
yeah,
yeah,
he's written about 4 or 5 of them. The Tecton font is his handwriting.
yeah, it's amazing. Yeah,
Mm.
I think we covered some of the
Yeah, it's
important
probably
books
time we
for
wrapped
this
it up. I mean,
episode.
there's other
Yeah, we
books
should.
we could do, but yeah, the Francis Ching one is really good, and the Studio Craft for Architects is Miriam Delaney and Anne Gorman. Fantastic
Yeah.
little book, really like it.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
thoroughly recommend
And
it. And then, of course, the other ones that we talked about, the Edward de Bono, not directly
yes.
relatable for students, but really good for tutors, I think.
Yeah, I think it's also highlight the soft skills of for the tutors, and
Mm.
also and also it's good for the students to read because it's getting, yeah, because we need to teach them the soft side of the architecture. It's not about the technical and the regulations and those kind of things. At least they need to be a little bit of poetic or a bit of vulnerable side on it, so that it's more human, right? It's more human about that because architecture is, at the end is for the human, for the people. So and if we keep on talking about building regulations, fire code, well, these are important, but we also think like we have heart, we have feelings. That is really good recommendations to recommended books to read. Yeah, and also thanks for highlighting De Bono books to read as a tutors. Yeah. All right. So I think it's time to wrap it up, and see
Yeah.
you next week. Thanks.
Take care.
Bye. Take care.